The sky over the slave market was dark. Clouds rumbled above. Rain poured down like punishment. Mason pulled his jacket tighter and walked slowly between cages. Rusted metal, mud on the ground. The smell of blood, wet fur, and fear was strong. Screams and whispers came from every corner. He hated places like this, but he was here for spare ship parts, not people. Still, something made him stop. He turned his head slowly and saw her. She was huddled in the far corner of a small cage. Her skin was rough, grayish, and covered in cuts. Her arms were too thin, her legs were shaking. A thick chain hung from her neck. She looked more like a wild animal than a girl. Her hair was tangled feathers, dirty and soaked. Her left eye was swollen shut. Her right eye, barely open, glowed faintly, golden in the dark. Mason stared. She didn't blink. She didn't cry. She just looked at him. No fear. No anger. Just silence. A voice behind him spoke. "Don't bother with that one." Mason turned to see the seller, a fat, half-blind alien with broken teeth. "She's half dead. Nobody wants her. Was in a mine camp, bit a guard's hand clean off." He spat on the ground, ugly too. Mason looked back at her. She hadn't moved. Still staring. Still silent. "Why keep her caged then?" Mason asked. The seller shrugged. "Someone might buy her cheap, maybe skin her, or feed her to dogs." Mason's jaw clenched. He reached into his coat and took out the small bag of credits he had left. "All of it," he said. "Let her out." The seller laughed. "That much for her? You must be lonely." Mason said nothing. Minutes later, the cage opened with a loud creak. The girl didn't move. Mason stepped closer and offered his hand. "Come, you're free now." She looked at his hand like it was a weapon. Then, slowly, she crawled forward. Her knees scraped the floor. She didn't take his hand, but she followed him. Through the mud, through the crowd, through the rain. They reached Mason's small ship, parked outside the market walls. He opened the door and waved her in. She didn't speak. Didn't ask questions. She just stepped inside and collapsed in the corner. Her body was shaking. Her feathers were soaked. She smelled like blood and ash. Mason fetched a towel and handed it to her. She didn't take it. He placed it on the floor beside her and sat on the opposite side of the ship. Silence filled the room. Only the sound of rain tapping the roof. An hour passed, she hadn't moved, so Mason stood, grabbed a blanket from the supply box and walked over. He draped it gently across her shoulders. As he turned to leave, he felt something. Her hand. Weak. Trembling. But gripping his sleeve. He looked down. Her one good eye looked up at him. She opened her mouth. Her voice was dry. Cracked. "Why?" Mason blinked. "Why? What? Why? Help me." He crouched beside her. "I don't know," he said honestly, maybe because no one else would. Her lip quivered, then she curled into the blanket and closed her eyes. That night, Mason slept in the pilot's seat. He didn't know her name, didn't know where she came from, didn't know what she'd been through. But one thing was clear. She wasn't just a slave. She wasn't just wounded. She was alive, and for now, that was enough. The girl didn't speak the next morning. Mason made food, just simple soup from a packet, but she didn't eat it. She stayed wrapped in the blanket, sitting quietly on the floor near the heater. Her eyes were half closed. Her body still shook sometimes. He didn't push her. She needed time. After 2 days, she tried to stand. Her legs failed and she hit the wall with a thud. Mason rushed over. "Easy," she growled softly. Not like a threat, but like a wounded creature. He backed off, hands raised. "You're safe here," he said. "You don't have to fight anymore." She stared at him. Then slowly, painfully, she stood upright. She was taller than he expected, even weak like this. Her skin was dull gray and patches of feathers ran along her shoulders and back. She wasn't just a beaten alien girl. She was something wild, something broken, but not dead. By the end of the week, she had a name. Mason gave it to her. Nira, he said one night, handing her a cup of clean water. It means light in Old Earth language. Suits you. She didn't respond at first. But later that night, he heard her whisper it to herself, very quietly. Nira. Her body began to heal. She still didn't smile, still flinched at sudden noise or fast movement. But she ate now. She drank water. She even touched things, running her fingers across the smooth table or the soft blanket. She had never seen human tech before. Sometimes she'd sit for hours just watching Mason fix old machines, her golden eye following every move. He didn't ask her questions. He didn't talk about her past. But one evening, while he was fixing a broken sensor, she finally broke the silence. Why? Mason looked up. Why what? Why help? Something like me. He set the tool down and leaned back in his chair. You're not a thing, Nira. She looked down. I was. I am. You saw the chains. He nodded. Yeah, I saw. You saw the scars. I did. You saw what I looked like. I did, he repeated calmly. She lifted her head. Her voice trembled. Then why didn't you walk away? Mason didn't speak for a moment. Then he said quietly, because someone should have helped me once. No one did. I won't make that. Same mistake. Nira didn't answer. She sat still for a long time. Then, slowly, she reached for the tool Mason had been holding and handed it to him. Her hands were still trembling, but for the first time, she reached first. That night, Mason made an extra blanket bed for her in the storage room. Not a cage, not a locked room, just space, just freedom. She didn't say thank you. She didn't need to. She slept with both eyes closed for the first time. Mason was used to silence. Life out here on the edge of nowhere was quiet. Just old machines, desert wind, and the hum of his solar panels. But ever since Nira came, the silence had changed. It wasn't empty anymore. Now it watched. Now, it listened. She didn't talk much, but she followed him now, watched him clean the dust filters, helped him carry spare parts. She didn't complain, even when her arms shook from weakness. She tried. She always tried. And Mason respected that more than anything. One evening, while fixing a solar dish on the roof, Mason glanced down and saw her standing in the doorway. She was looking at the sky, arms crossed, feathers moving gently in the wind. He slid down the ladder. You all right? Nira didn't answer at first. Then she said softly, It's strange. Your sky. Why? It feels big. Mason smiled. I think it's always been big. She looked at him. Where I came from, the sky was metal and it never opened. Later that night, while she was asleep, he passed her door and saw her curled up, shaking, a nightmare. He wanted to wake her, but stopped. She suddenly whispered something barely audible. Don't burn me again, please. Mason's chest tightened. He backed away. He didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, Nira was already awake. She sat near the heater, sharpening a broken wrench like it was a blade. She didn't greet him, just said, Do you want to know? Mason frowned. Know what? Why they called me dangerous. He didn't speak. She stood, lifted her shirt and turned around. Mason froze. Her back was ruined. Burn marks, deep lashes. And under it all, 2 jagged, half-healed stubs, wings, once beautiful, now broken. They clipped me, she said. Said wings were wasted on trash. Mason's hands curled into fists. They tried to burn it out of me, my voice, my fire. But it's still there. She looked over her shoulder, golden eyes glowing. Mason saw something new, not just pain, but power. She lowered her shirt and walked outside. I'll fix the satellite now. He watched her go, slow, steady, silent. She didn't want pity. She wanted to stand. That afternoon, a desert storm rolled in fast. Mason yelled from the workshed. "Nira! Inside! Storm's close!" But she didn't move. She stood on the ridge, facing the wind, eyes closed. Lightning flashed, and for a second, Mason swore he saw it, a faint shimmer around her back, like wings, not feathers, not metal, but flame. She walked, back inside covered in dust. "You trying to get yourself killed?" Mason asked. "I wanted to see if the sky was still mine," she whispered. He stared at her. "You never lost it," he said. That night, for the first time, she sat beside him at dinner. Not across the room. Not in silence. She reached for a spoon, a small thing. But for her, a war one. Mason rarely got visitors. He liked it that way. The outpost was too far from the main colonies, and he didn't owe favors to anyone anymore. Just him, his tools, the machines, and now, Nira. But that peace didn't last. Because one morning just past sunrise, a small ship landed on the edge of the canyon. Its engines roared like it owned the sky. Mason stepped outside, already frowning. He knew the model, and he knew the pilot. 3 figures stepped out. Dust boots, loud laughs, greedy eyes. They were scavengers, old contacts from his past life. The one in front, tall and red-faced, grinned. "Mason, still breathing, huh?" Mason crossed his arms. "Just barely." Another man nudged the third and smirked. "Heard you've got company now. A pet?" Mason's jaw tightened. "She's not a pet." The first man laughed. "Relax. We just came for a drink, not trouble." Mason didn't trust them. But he didn't want to fight either. He let them in. Nira watched from the shadows. She didn't speak. She didn't sit. She just stood near the back wall, eyes locked on the strangers like a hawk watching snakes. They looked at her, whispered, chuckled. The red-faced one finally said loud enough to hear, "She's... what? A pet project? That's what you dragged in from the slave pits?" Mason's voice was cold. "Her name is Nira. Show some respect." The man stepped closer to her. "You understand words, girl?" Nira didn't move, but her golden eye narrowed. The man reached toward her, laughing. "I just want to see what kind of creature makes you forget about women, Mason." His sentence ended in a scream. Nira moved like lightning. She twisted his wrist, slammed him to the ground, and held the sharpened tool blade inches from his throat. Her voice was ice. "Touch me again, and you won't leave with your hands." The room went dead silent. The 2 others froze. Mason stood still. Then, slowly, Nira let go. The man scrambled back, coughing, furious. "She's crazy." Mason walked forward, calm but firm. "She's free, and you're leaving." The men cursed, threw their drinks, walked out. The ship lifted off and vanished into the clouds. Later that evening, Mason found Nira sitting alone in the storage room, staring at her hands. "I didn't mean to lose control," she said. "But they reminded me of the ones who hurt me." Mason crouched beside her. "They deserved worse," he said. She looked up, surprised. "You're not angry?" "No." "Then, you won't send me away?" Mason looked into her glowing eyes. "Nira, this is your home now, and no one's sending you anywhere." For the first time, she smiled. Not big, not perfect, but real. And, in that quiet moment, something in her changed. Not her scars, not her feathers, but her soul. She had defended herself, and he had stood beside her. She whispered, "Visitors may not like what I've become," then looked at him with warmth. "But you do," Mason nodded. "I always did." The storm came suddenly. Thunder shook the outpost. The wind howled across the canyons like a beast set free. Rain slammed against the roof in heavy waves. Power blinked once. Then again. Then it died. Darkness wrapped around the small home like a blanket of cold. Mason lit an old lantern. He set it on the table inside. "Generator's down. We'll fix it in the morning." He glanced toward the hallway. Neera's door was closed. She hadn't said much all day. After the visitors left, she'd become quiet again, watchful, careful. He couldn't blame her. Sometimes the past didn't just haunt. It followed. He wrapped himself in a blanket on his bed, the cold seeping through the walls. He listened to the storm, and then soft footsteps. He turned his head toward the door. A shadow stood there, still, silent. Neera, she took one step into the room, her arms wrapped around herself. She wore the oversized tunic he'd given her weeks ago. It hung off her shoulders, her feathers damp from the humidity. "I couldn't sleep," she said, voice low. "Too cold." Mason sat up slowly. "There's a second blanket in the—" "I don't want the blanket," she interrupted softly. "I want this." She stepped closer, "to be near you." He said nothing, just moved over. She sat beside him, unsure, tense, like she didn't know if she was allowed to be here. "I don't understand why," she whispered. "But when I'm close to you, I feel calm." He nodded gently. "Me too." Rain tapped harder against the window. She leaned her head on his shoulder slowly and whispered something so quiet he almost missed it. "You gave me shelter, even when I was ugly and broken. You gave me warmth, even when I had nothing to offer. You called me by name." She looked up at him, eyes glowing, heart open. "Let me stay here, in your room, in your warmth, not just for tonight, but forever." Mason swallowed hard. He had no perfect words, just his actions. He laid back, lifted the blanket, and without hesitation, Neera slid in beside him. She didn't touch him, not at first. She simply lay there, still, listening to the storm outside. Then, very slowly, she reached for his hand and held it. No words, no need. Just two souls, scarred and strange, sharing warmth in the middle of a cold world. That night, she didn't flinch in her sleep. She didn't whisper in fear. She didn't shake from old pain. She breathed softly, peacefully, and for the first time, she truly belonged. The sun rose slowly over the canyon, casting golden light through the windows of Mason's outpost. The storm had passed. The world outside was washed clean. Inside, Neera was still asleep, curled beneath the blanket, her hand resting softly over Mason's. He didn't move. He just watched her, and wondered when she'd stopped looking like a slave and started looking like someone irreplaceable. Later that morning, Neera stood by the water tank, her sleeves rolled up as she scrubbed spare filters. The sunlight touched her shoulders, making the soft feathers shimmer. Her once gray skin looked warm now, even pink in some places. Health had returned to her cheeks. Her eyes, once full of fear, were steady, focused. A merchant convoy arrived, just after noon. Mason had made a trade request weeks ago. He forgot it was due. He stepped outside to meet them. 3 humans and 1 alien walked off the supply hauler. They joked, laughed, stretched their arms. "Long way from anything out here," one of them said. Mason nodded. "That's the idea." One of the men pointed toward the shed. "Who's that?" he asked, seeing Neera walk out, feathers blowing, in the wind. Mason followed his gaze. "She helps me around the outpost." The man whistled. "She yours?" Mason's face turned hard. "She's her own." The others backed off, sensing his tone. But the woman in the group, curious, stepped closer. "She's stunning," she said. Mason blinked. "What?" "She's not like anything I've seen. That skin, those feathers, her eyes. She's beautiful." Mason didn't answer. He just turned, walked inside. Neera sat at the table, wiping grease from her hands. "They called me beautiful," she said without looking up. Mason sat across from her. "You are." She blinked. Even before? He smiled. Especially before. That night, she stood in front of the small mirror he had fixed for her. She touched her face slowly, not with disgust, with wonder. The next day, she braided feathers into her hair, decorated her tunic with old cloth scraps. She began humming while she worked, soft melodies, not human, and one evening she came to dinner and sat beside Mason, closer than ever before. "You gave me a name," she whispered. "Then you gave me warmth. Now I have something else." "What's that?" Mason asked. She smiled. "A reason to stay beautiful." People had once looked at her and seen filth, chains, ugly skin, a thing. But Mason had looked past all that. He saw Nira, before the rest of the world did, before she did. They came at night. No warning. No lights. No words. Just black ships sliding silently down from the clouds, their engines whispering death. Mason was outside repairing a sensor when he saw the shadow in the sky. His heart dropped. He knew that shape, that symbol burned onto the hull. Slavers. Inside, Nira froze. The air shifted. Her feathers rose like blades. Her body remembered before her mind could. The ships landed just outside the fence, and from them came the men who once caged her. Different faces, but the same eyes. Hunters, buyers, takers. The one in front held a scanner. It glowed red the moment it passed over the outpost. "We found her," he said, grinning. "Took long enough." Mason stepped forward, rifle ready. "She's not going anywhere," the slaver sneered. "She's property, empire rule. You know the law. She's free. You'll have to kill me first." The man smirked. "That can be arranged." Nira stepped outside then, barefoot, silent, her golden eyes glowing in the moonlight. She didn't look afraid. She looked ready. "I used to belong to you," she said, her voice steady. "You burned my wings. You broke my body." The slaver raised his weapon. "And I can do it again." Mason moved forward, but Nira raised a hand. "No," she said. "This is mine to end." Then she moved, faster than anyone expected, like flame given form. She knocked the first gun away, rolled low, and struck the leader with a full-body slam that threw him into the dust. The others raised their rifles, but the wind answered her. It, Tiro, howled through the canyon, swirling dust and light around her. Feathers burst from her arms. Her back flared, not wings of skin, wings of light. The slavers backed away. "What is she?" Mason stood behind her, smiling. "She's mine." The leader crawled back to his ship. "This isn't over," Nira's voice was calm. "Yes, it is." She opened her arms wide, and the ship's power core overloaded. The engines burst into sparks. The slavers fled into the dark, defeated. The battle ended in silence. Just stars above, just dust below, and in between, two people, breathing, alive, together. Mason sat on the porch, rifle in his lap. Nira stood behind him, watching the night. "I thought you'd run," he said softly. "I did once," she whispered, "but not anymore." She walked to him, knelt at his side, and took his hand. "This place, your arms, this life, it's the only home I've ever known." Mason looked into her glowing eyes. "You sure?" She leaned into him. "I don't want a kingdom," she said. "I don't want wings or ships or revenge." Her voice was gentle, true. "I just want to fall asleep in your arms and wake up there again, every day, for the rest of my life." He pulled her close, no chains, no fear, just warmth, just home. In the middle of nowhere, a slave became a woman, a stranger became her heart, and a home was built without walls, only love.